Hello everyone, welcome back to the finals of the League Challenge / Top 8 Cut for Win-A-Box tournament at Flipside Gaming in East Greenbush, New York. We have Scott again here on the left with his Arceus Duraludon Vulpix deck, the same 60 as Alex Shemansky, one EUIC with, and we have, I believe his name is Anthony here, yet again on the right with the Lost Box deck. We've seen both of these players a couple of times each already here in these videos from this tournament, so this is the finals. We will have to see exactly how this goes. This one is best of 3, and this place for some reason does untimed top cuts. But the League Challenge did end at the end of Swiss. Nathaniel, the guy who played Mew in the last round, did win the tournament for the League Challenge, but they take the top 8 or the top 4, depending on the amount of players that are there, and then cut to a Win-A-Box tournament that is technically separate. So this is the finals of that. They cut to top 4 this time because of the amount of players was a little bit lower than normal. And at this point, I'm off to the side watching the whole thing, and I keep continuously joking about Scott needing to play Cramorant in his deck because he lost so many cards with Chorus's Experiment, and also I make a lot of jokes about how he's going to start double Drapion and his opponent is going to start Dragonite with no Comphase or Chorus's Experiments. And of course, neither of that happens in game 1 here. So I was a little disappointed because I just wanted to see a Brick Fest. But yeah, they do not do timed matches for Top Cut, which is very odd to me, but we are going to have an untimed best of 3 match, and thankfully it does not go on for too long over what would normally be a normal amount of time here. Usually you get 50 minutes per round in best of 3. So we do open with the double Battle VIP Pass. Going first here for the Lost Box player, we are going to grab Cramorant, Double Comfey, and Radiant Greninja. That is the perfect Pokemon that I would have gotten as well. If I had maybe Forest Sealstone in my hand, maybe I would have gotten like a Raikou as well, maybe, but instead of the Cramorant. But Cramorant here is really good. You don't need more than 3 Comfey. You could get a 4th Comfey, but it doesn't always work out quite right. I try to do it sometimes, but it never works when I have 4 Comfey. You just never find enough switching cards to be able to do that. So we're going to use our first Flower Selecting to Lost Zone a Lost Vacuum. Then we are going to Flower Selecting after using an Escape Rope yet again. He's moving the marker that showed that he's used his Comfeys already instead of actually moving the Comfeys. So in case you guys are unclear about why he's putting markers on his benched Comfeys, that's just because he is using the switch card to switch into that Comfey and then using the Flower Selecting. He's just like taking a shortcut to save time because both players agreed on it. I wouldn't do it personally, but it's fine. It's pretty clear that's what he's doing. And he says it like out loud every single time too. I know you guys can't hear the video because we're playing the battle music playlist instead, but so now if we're Scott, we want double Turbo Energy and at least 1 benched V Pokemon to charge to. We have the double Turbo Energy here, which is pretty great. Looks like we have a couple of regular energies. We have a Research. I think you play the Research. You could play the Lost City as well. That's not a bad thing to put down. You might as well. Oh, he has the Duraludon V. I think that you do put that down. That's not terrible against Lost Box. It does give 3 prizes, but it does have to be 3-shot by both Cramorant and Sableye. So I don't think that it's bad to put that down, but he may be thinking here that he wants to just go pure Arceus only and try to rely on his Sharon's Care to be able to get as much value out of the Arceus as possible. So that's always a thing that could happen. But if you're smart with the Lost Box deck, you want to use your Sableye to put 3 damage counters on each of the Arceus in play, or 5 if the Radiant Gardevoir is down. And then you would just knock them out with the Dragonite V. So you can play around the math that way, because you don't want to Sharon's Care up a Pokemon that has only 3 damage counters on it. It feels bad. So we are going to use our Trinity Charge, utilizing that double turbo energy there. We are going to put 3 basic energies onto our Pokemon V however we want. We're going to put 2 down onto the Vulpix V and 1 of them down to the Arceus. I like putting the bigger amount of energy down to the Vulpix for 2 reasons. If you top deck Sharon's Care, you can pick up your damaged Arceus that was hit by a Cramorant, and then put up the second Arceus V and then reattach the double turbo, and then that way you'll be able to attack with that Arceus V. Or you could instead, if you don't get the Chorus's Experiment or the Sharon's Care, you can retreat into the Vulpix V, attach one of the basic energies that are in your hand and be able to attack with that instead. And you are protected from Pokemon with abilities like the Cramorant. So you really want to set up the Vulpix more if you can. So Lost Box, just doing some more Lost Box things. We're Lost Zoning cards with Flower Selecting. We're deep drawing here with Michael Long, Radiant Michael Long on the bench. We're going to play Escape Rope here, so that's going to force up something different here. Scott's going to put the second Arceus up because he wants to protect the Vulpix as much as he can before it evolves into the V-Star and is able to use its attack. So, more Flower Selectings, retreating, more Flower Selectings potentially. Nope, we're going in with the Cram this time. We've got 7 in the Lost Zone. That is a really good number because on the next turn, if you do get knocked out, you can promote a Comfey and use Flower Selecting and Chorus's Experiment and get to 10 in the Lost Zone. So you don't necessarily need to use the third Comfey this turn. You feel fine using it next turn. And just spit innocently to the Arceus V. So this would be great to see a Sharon's Care here right now. And the Escape Rope actually does mess this up a little bit. Oh, and also Scott accidentally evolves the wrong Pokemon. He'll fix that in a second. I do remember that. So he does, yeah, he's like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's not my Vulpix. Yeah, so he does fix it. The Vulpix V-Star does go down onto the correct Pokemon. He does attach the second Water Energy for a turn. And now the problem is Scott is going to have to find a way to move this Arceus. I think if I were him, if the Sharon's Care is in deck, I would grab the Arceus V-Star. You could evolve either the bench or active, and then you could Sharon's Care the active up, put up the Vulpix V-Star, and then just attack with that. Because this way you erase that 1 turn of damage that was done by using the Sharon's Care. You also have the Research in hand, so you could always use that next turn if you need anything else. But he could go for a switch card instead. I think that is what he's eyeing up. He must have prized the Sharon's Care, and he is going to go for a Judge instead. So if the Sharon's Care is not available to you, this is 100% what you want to do here. So you'll... Yeah, so he used Starbirth to grab those 2 cards. He didn't flip his V-Star marker, which is the Pikachu Magnet yet. So he might have to fix that. I didn't notice when I was watching them play before. But now he does go for the Judge. So the Lockbox player does have a lot of cards in hand. You want to make sure you can mitigate that by using the Judge. So both players are going to shuffle their hands in and redraw a fresh new 4. So if Anthony here was able to have Mirage Gate in hand before, he's going to have a lot less likelihood of having it this turn. Especially since he's at 7 cards in the Lost Zone, as you can tell by the die there, the Spin Down Magic the Gathering die, that they usually use for life counting, funnily enough. Is actually really perfect for using the Lost Zone, because the numbers actually all go around in order. That's why they call it a spin down, because you can continuously spin the die and the number will increase in increments of 1 every single time. So if you're a Lost Box player who likes to use a die to keep track of how many are in the Lost Zone, I would highly recommend using a spin down die like this in particular. I usually just keep mine spread out so I can see the number because it's really easy for me to go, okay, 3, 6, 7, I have 7 in the Lost Zone, stuff like that. And I, of course, stop counting after 10, as everyone should. So we did Flower Selecting into double Mirage Gate, which is an easy choice. You do have to Lost Zone one of the two. Now, it would be fun to use Radiant Greninja here and strike both the bench Pokemon, but that doesn't knock out the Arceus V. It would feel a lot better doing that if you could knock out the Arceus V, but you'll be a little bit too short there. You could always finish it off with a Sableye pretty easily after that, but if he evolves to the Arceus V-Star next turn, then it has more HP remaining, and then it just feels bad. And you're not getting as much value out of the Sableye on the next turn. So it looks like we do drop the Dragonite and immediately Mirage Gate to it. We're going to get 1 Water Energy and 1 Lightning Energy from the deck. As well as... Oh, nope, we dropped double Mirage Gate. That is double Mirage Gate, I do remember that. He did drop 2 of those. So he gets double Water and Lightning. Because remember, Mirage Gate can only get 2 energy that are different colors. So even if you had maybe Lightning in hand and you wanted double Water on the Pokemon, you would have to play 2 Mirage Gates to get the 2 waters, which is kind of inconvenient in all honesty, but at least there is some sort of way that Mirage Gate is balanced. We are also going to see the Colress's Experiment here come out. We're going to get another 2 cards in the Lost Zone. That puts us up to 11, so we will be able to attack with Sableye at any point. I think that's a Hisuian Heavy Ball that's in there. You can definitely get rid of that, or if it's a Battle VIP Pass, either way. I know that there's one of those dead cards in there. Yeah, whatever that leftmost card is right now, I think is safe to put there. It could always be a Nest Ball too, which you don't necessarily need. So it looks like that is a switch cart and something else. Couldn't tell what the other one was 100%. But we are going to bump the stadium by playing the Beach Court. We don't necessarily want any of our Pokemon to get put in the Lost Zone at this point, especially since we're already at 10. And we are going to attack with the Dragonite. Does 250 damage, which is able to one-shot the Vulpix V-Star. And that is why Vulpix V-Star is a lot weaker in this Lost Box matchup where it does play the Dragonite, because you can always just one-shot it with that. If you're against maybe the Charizard version, it's a little better. If they're, you know, going with Raikou and stuff, and maybe they prize the Dragonite or had to Lost Zone it early, then the Vulpix is really good. Because then the only attacker that can really hit it is Sableye. But now we're going to go attach an energy to the Arceus V-Star here. We can use the Turbo, or the Turbocharge, the Trinity Nova to charge up that other benched Arceus. But again, you'd really rather be picking that benched one up since it has damage on it. You know you're going to get damaged again here. And now you really need the Choice Belt. You need the Choice Belt this turn. You've already used Starbirth, so you can't Starbirth for the Choice Belt, but you can Raihan. You haven't played a supporter yet, so you can Raihan for the Choice Belt here right now, and you can one-shot the Dragonite V. Or actually, no, you can't, because you have the double Turbo Energy on it. I forgot. Never mind. So if you had purely basic energy on this Arceus, you could go for the Choice Belt and one-shot the Dragonite V, but unfortunately, you can't do that right here. 230 HP is just out of your reach. You can hit 210 at most. So you do have to two-shot the Dragonite V, and this is a really rough position to be in now. So your judge was not able to stick the previous turn because, again, you wanted to make sure that this play would not happen because of that judge. But unfortunately, Anthony was able to build up to it anyway. We do get the Radiant Gardevoir down, which does help a little bit. That will be reducing the damage you take by 20. So that'll make the math with Sableye a little bit worse in a future turn. And gives you another... helps you a little bit getting into the Sharon's Care, but either way, it just feels bad. So, would be really nice to have Sharon's Care next turn. You could pick up the current Arceus V-Star. And I think that we are aware of that. And again, I think the Sharon's Care still is in the prize cards. But Scott is aware of that. And of course, we do the 180 to the Dragonite, and we immediately just get bossed and knocked out, so that benched Arceus is no more. And now all that we have to do if we're Lost Box is get through this one remaining Arceus V-Star, and we win the game because we are at 2 prize cards remaining. And this is where you would really like the finals to still be best of 1. Because if you are the one to take the first win, you're just like, wow, if this was like the rest of the tournament, I could have just gone home now with my box. But I have to play another 1 to potentially 2 more games. We do see yet another judge coming out of here on Scott here. So this could be good as long as Anthony is not able to build up yet another new hand. He has already used 2 to 3 Colress's experiments. I don't quite remember exactly how many he's used, but he has used a lot. And he's already used 2 Mirage Gates, and 1 is in the Lost Zone, so he only has 1 Mirage Gate left available to him. So if you do knock out the Dragonite here, and Anthony isn't able to find a way to build up another attacker, this could be it. So we do see the new Arceus V be benched. We get a double turbo energy on it, a choice belt on it, and we use Trinity Nova to put a basic energy from our deck onto it. And we are able to take 2 prize cards, so Scott goes down to 3 prize cards remaining. Now Anthony just needs, off of this 4-card hand and off his Comfey and maybe his Radiant Greninja, to be able to build up to maybe an Energy Recycler turn or a Clara turn. It would be fine to just even attack with Cramorant this turn. Sableye would be very good. But I think the way that you win, the best path to winning right now is if you are able to attack with Sableye. You can put 50 damage to each of the Arceus, and then the 20 remaining to the Radiant Gardevoir, not that that 20 matters. And then on the next turn, you Clara back the Dragonite, Energy Recycler back the energies, and then use your final Mirage Gate and attach water for turn, switch into the Dragonite, and then knock out either of the Arceus that are active. And then you could win the game. So he is using the Energy Recycler now, so we've had at least that part put together. We are going to Nest Ball for a Sableye. Now, worst case scenario, we can use our final Mirage Gate just to set up the Sableye. We could put an energy to the active and then the Psychic Energy to the Sableye. We'd be able to retreat into it and do that attack. We are using Flower Selecting. We're going to Lost Zone what I think is the last Colress's experiment. Because I think he did just play one this turn. We are going to use Concealed Cards, discarding a Water Energy to draw 2 more cards. We're going to put the Beach Court into play, so we have that now. The Lost City was Lost Zone on the last turn, so he's not actually bumping that stadium. We are going to use Flower Selecting again. After retreating, getting rid of a Clara is a little scary, but if you have another in hand, it might be fine. We do have the Psychic Energy in hand. We are going to switch cart into it. And yeah, now you need at least 50 damage onto each Arceus V-Star, and then the 20 remaining damage really doesn't matter. Or you could just do this. You could go 120 to the benched Arceus V and hope he never evolves it. So, but I think that that is a little bit risky because you do know that there is a high likelihood that there is still a Sharon's Care. So if we see Sharon's Care to pick up that Arceus V this turn, you didn't do anything on the last turn. But we just see a Research instead. And this is a really bad position for Scott now. Because again, yeah, this whole game has come down to where is my Sharon's Care? And it's still in those last 3 remaining prize cards. And we are just going to take the knockout here. We look through the deck because that is mandatory to do with Arceus's attack, so you might as well gain some information if you can by looking through it. You'll have to shuffle the deck either way. We do take 1 card, and there's the Sharon's Care. And then I do believe that Scott concedes after that because we do see the Clara comes out. and we have Beach Court already in play, so we are able to grab the... Oh, and Echoing Horn was prized from Anthony's side here. So we are able to see the Clara does pick up Sableye, Psychic Energy. We retreat for free with the Beach Court into the Sableye. We just stack another 12 damage counters down on the Arceus V, which is more than enough. And we do take the knockout and win the game off the last 2 prize cards. So that got really lucky for Anthony there by the Sharon's Care being that 4th prize card taken. And I am going to skip ahead just a little bit because they are pile stacking here, is what I call it. Remember, kids, pile shuffling is not a sufficient shuffle. You do have to fully shuffle your deck after doing a pile shuffle. It is on the Pokemon website on a article that teaches you how to shuffle. It says pile shuffling is not shuffling. And that it alone is technically cheating. So, I just don't do pile shuffling at all. If you do pile shuffle, it's fine. I don't like it when somebody pile shuffles between games because it wastes time on the clock. But again, this is an untimed match, so I wouldn't stop my opponent from doing it here. So we do have the Raikou start here from Lost Box and the Arceus start from Arceus. That's always what you want to see if you are Arceus. I do believe I saw the Sharon's Care in deck this time. That is really important, really good to have. Looks like we are considering setting up the Vulpix early. Again, that is a good early game attacker for this deck if you can set that up immediately after your Trinity Charge or Trinity Nova and get attacking with that before they get too many cards in the Lost Zone to be able to set up that Dragonite. If maybe the Dragonite is prized, that would be really good for you here. I think otherwise you would want to go for maybe the Arceus V. I think Vulpix is fine, and I think Arceus is fine as the 2 choices for the Nest Ball. So we see our necessary attach for turn here. Very unfortunate that it is not a double turbo. Well, actually, no, you are going first. For some reason, I'm thinking he's going second. My water break messed with my head. So we do get our turn 1 attach. We just need double turbo next turn. We do have the Ultra Ball to get it, as well as the Chorus's Experiment for just drawing some extra cards. So you could use the Chorus's Experiment first. Would be pretty good there. And our opponent, of course, starts with Chorus's Experiment. They also have the Fleet-Footed from the Raikou V. This is the first time we've actually even seen the Raikou V come out of him here. Clara and Sableye is sometimes mandatory to put into the Lost Zone turn 1. However, it's really not something that you want in the Lost Zone if you can avoid it. So we are going to draw our 1 with Fleet-Footed. We put Beach Court into play. We can retreat for free because of the Beach Court, just like the Sky Arrow Bridge of old that I love to play in my Virizion Genesect decks. Has the exact same effect where basic Pokemon have 1 less retreat. We're going to go for the Flower Selecting here on the Comfey. I guess it's a little bit of a tough decision. Looks like Nest Ball and Rope. We're going to use the Nest Ball. Yeah, you could always get the Radiant Greninja here. If you have a energy in hand, you could always discard to draw 2 more cards. That would be perfect to get. Or just another Comfey if we don't have the Radiant Greninja available to us. Yeah, I think he's double checking to make sure his Radiant Greninja is prized or not. And there it is. So yeah, that's a lot better here, because you still have access to 1 more Flower Selecting if you have an energy in hand. You just get a lot more value out of having the Radiant Greninja in play along with the double Comfey. You are going, if you have 1 more switch card, you can always get to 4 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1 here, and then you will be able to, yet again, if you have another switch card and the Cramorant, be able to attack turn 1, which is definitely what you want to do. It's not 100% necessary, but it is really feel good, to say the least. So again, we're just switching the marker around on the Comfey instead of actually switching the cards. Not that it technically really matters, there's still a Comfey going active. So we are going to use the second Comfey's Flower Selecting. We're going to look at the top 2 cards of our deck. We're going to Lost Zone one of them, and again, it's a little bit of a tough decision. That's just because one of them is an energy. You never really want to Lost Zone more than one of each color energy. It always feels bad if you have to Lost Zone 2 of the same color, because then it really hurts your consistency getting your attackers going. There was a game recently where I did have to Lost Zone 2 Psychic energy with mine, but I was still able to get to the Sableye as I needed to. Thankfully. So yep, we are going to see the Chorus's Experiment here. And look at the top 5. We do get Double Turbo and Nest Ball. Would not be too... Well, the Nest Ball I think you can safely Lost Zone. That's not something that you really need. And you can get rid of... I mean, you can get rid of the Lost City. I think I'd rather keep it. So yeah, definitely get rid of the Nest Ball. Now this is the thing, is that Scott here was really deciding on whether or not he wanted to use the Ultra Ball before the Chorus or after here. I do remember this. Because now he's going to have to discard some resources he necessarily doesn't want to discard, just because he didn't see exactly what he wanted off of this Chorus. I still think doing the Chorus first is correct. But I think now you're going to have to discard the Double Turbo energy to do it. So either way, so now you're just like... You're discarding, like, 1 or 2 of the cards that you just put into your hand with Chorus's Experiment. But at least your hand is bigger than it was if you would have Ultra Balled first. So the other way you could have done it is you could have Ultra Balled first, gotten the Arceus V-Star, and then used the V-Star Power Starbirth to get Research, and then used Research instead of Chorus. Then you'd have more options potentially in your hand. You might be able to draw into, like, the evolutions for the Vulpix and the second Arceus. So maybe it would have been better that way, but this way you don't have to waste your Starbirth. Because you want to have that available for later in the game if you can afford it, especially since the Vulpix can use its V-Star power to attack as well. So right now there is a Raikou V on the bench from our last box player, and Vulpix's V-Star power for 0 energy does 70 times the amount of V Pokemon your opponent has in play. So that would one-shot a Comfey. So if you needed to do that attack, it would be nice to have the ability to do it by not utilizing your V-Star power yet. So now we see, yet again, another Chorus's Experiment coming out here. We're going to see another 5 cards off the top of our deck. Put 3 of them in our hand, 2 in the Lost Zone. So we're going to get rid of Nest Ball and something else. Can't really tell what that is, but that's fine. Putting those other 3 into our hand. We still have our Comfey to Flower Select, and we do have our Radiant Greninja to draw 2 cards, so we're going to use that first. We get discard a Lightning Energy to get another Lightning Energy and a Battle VIP Pass, which would have been pretty dead. So it would have been really nice to see the Comfey first, but you don't know what you're going to see off the top of your deck. It doesn't really matter sequencing. You always know what was better in hindsight. You can never really predict. So if you knew somehow by magic that there was a Battle VIP Pass in your top 2, you definitely would want to Comfey first. And we do see just a ton of energy in hand here. We are going to use another Comfey after we retreat Flower Selecting. We're going to get rid of this other Battle VIP Pass. We're going to keep that Forest Seal Stone. We already have 1 Forest Seal Stone down on our Raikou V. It looks like we are using it now. We're going to use the Star Alchemy ability of the Forest Seal Stone. Since it is attached to a Pokemon V, we are able to search our deck for any 1 card. We are at 6 in the Lost Zone. Looks like we are considering Mirage Gate. I think we're counting how many are in the deck. So we do pick the 1. We do have to flip our V-Star marker still. Something that Scott forgot to do in the first game. Looks like maybe we are forgetting to do it in this game as well. We are going to Nest Ball as well. We're going to get a Cramorant down. What word did I just say? Down? That's not even a word. What am I talking about? So we're going to Nest Ball for the Cramorant. That wouldn't be bad to hit with this turn. Soften up that Arceus. Because the Raikou, if you were to be able to Mirage Gate to it this turn, which I think you can actually. I think you're at 9 in the Lost Zone, I think is what the mark is at. Yeah, I think he's actually at 9, but there's no way to switch out again. So we're just going to pass here. Not the ideal way you wanted that turn to end. You would have rather been able to attack with Cramorant, but it's fine. The Raikou does cap out at 220 damage, and that is if both benches are full. So there is no way that this Raikou could ever one-shot an Arceus V-Star. It does not have lightning weakness. It has fighting weakness. Which is funny because you wouldn't think that the god of Pokemon has a weakness, but apparently it's weak to fighting types. Yeah, they print a lot of cards that like have no weakness, and it's funny that they didn't do that for God, but you know, whatever. So we are nest balling here. We're trying to consider what we want to get. I think that it looks like he goes for nothing instead of the grabbing the Radiant Gardevoir. I think that you should have grabbed the Gardevoir because that does reduce 20 damage. It will add one Pokemon to your bench, so the Raikou is doing more damage technically, but it's also reducing 20, so it's a net 0 on the damage output of the Raikou. So there's no reason not to have it. It will just make it so the combination of Sableye and the Dragonite V is harder to knock out your Pokemon. So I think that that is a little bit of a misplay here from Scott. And still hasn't realized about the V-Star marker, so both players in this match have forgotten to flip their V-Star marker when they use their V-Star powers in each game. But Scott hasn't actually used his yet, so he will be able to use Starbirth if he needs to, or Silver Snowstar. So we play a Lost Vacuum. We have 12 now in the Lost Zone, more than enough to attack with Cramorant. I think, again, you do at least 5 to each Arceus and then maybe 2 to the Vulpix. Because then if there's 2 on the Vulpix, you could one-shot it with the Raikou if the benches are both full. As long as you boss it up. It's like a really big, like, maybe, but you might as well because the 20 extra damage going to either of the 2 Arceuses doesn't matter. Unless you're trying to take knockouts with Cram, I guess. You could put 60 on each one, and then you can 2-shot each one with a Cram. Looks like we are going to Mirage Gate, and we only have 1 Water Energy in deck to target with it. So that is a little bit of a misplay not using the Energy Recycler first. So it would have been a little bit better to remember the contents of your deck. You did use the Nest Ball last turn, so that would have been a really good time to check how many energies are in your deck and what colors to see whether or not you needed to use Energy Recycler first before this Mirage Gate. But it might not end up mattering because between the 2 Mirage Gates you still get the Dragonite V fully loaded up. So as long as you have the switching card, it'll be fine. It's just if you were able to Energy Recycler first, you may have also been able to get an energy onto the Raikou or onto the Comfey to retreat if you needed an energy to retreat. But I think there are still energies in hand that we could always attach as well. So it looks like we are going to attach and retreat. And boss up the Vulpix. And we are going to take the one-shot here. So that's actually pretty good here, because you know that neither of these Arceus will be able to return knock you out this turn. So you do get one more turn of that. And then you can finish the active Arceus off with Sableye on the next turn, as long as there's no Sharon's Care in between. And we do see from Scott a Judge. So this was a pretty good Judge here from him, because now with 12 cards in the Lost Zone, with only 2 Comfey in play, no more Radiant Greninja because he did boss knock it out the previous turn. It's going to make it a lot harder for Anthony here to be able to reset up a new big hand. So both players redraw a fresh 4 from their decks after shuffling their hands in because of the judge. And it looks like Scott's hand off of that isn't super good. He just has a couple Chorus's Experiments. I think it might just be all supporters. Yeah, he redraws into the Raihan he shuffled back in, and he also has a Research. So he can't use any of those cards this turn. He's checking to see how many energies he's used. I think at this point you are fine just hitting into the Dragonite and then putting a couple energies onto your benched Arceus V-Star. But it looks like we are going to Starbirth. What are we going to get with the Starbirth? Looks like the Lost City. And a Boss's Orders. You can't use those this turn, though, is the only unfortunate thing. Because you already used the Judge. Okay, so here now he's going to go for the Radiant Gardevoir, which he could have had earlier if he just got it off the Nest Ball. It hasn't mattered for the math yet, so he's still getting it at the right time, but that could have been one more card you could have added to your hand this turn with the Starbirth. Looks like he's going to add the Boss's Orders. I think that's fine. I think you would rather have the Lost City the turn that you are knocking out the Dragonite, rather than now. Now he's going to bench the Radiant Gardevoir, and he's going to use Trinity Nova, so he's going to do 180, and he's going to put 1 to 2 basic energy to that Arceus V-Star on the bench. So it looks like there are a couple metals left, so we do have that. Oh, and here comes the Echoing Horn now. That's going to put a basic Pokemon into play from the discard pile. And here is that Duraludon that was discarded turn... Was that discarded turn 1? Or was that last game? Or no, he's going to go for the Vulpix instead. I think he might have... Yeah, he has the Boss's Orders. So he's just going to boss it up and knock it out again. So yeah, now Lost Box is definitely in the lead here. He only has 2 prize cards remaining. Just has to fight his way through one of these 2 Arceus V-Stars. And he has 4 potential turns to do it. Or 2 to 3 potential turns to do it. It depends. So there is still a world where Scott can win this. He can knock out the Dragonite and then knock out the Raikou on the next turn. And as long as... Yeah, I think Scott can definitely still win this. Because he goes knockout on the Dragonite V with his active. And then on the next turn, Sharon's... Or he could... Yeah, Boss's Orders the Raikou V on the bench, and then knock it out with either of his 2 Arceus. Because even though he's only doing 180, Anthony had to put 40 damage so far onto his benched Pokemon. Yeah, and here he's at 5 cards in the Lost Zone here on the left for Scott. So that's where I told him, I said, you could really use a Cramorant right now. And he's like, actually, that would be really good. Because you'd be able to knock out the Dragonite with it. So just a funny interaction. If somebody wants to play a really bad Arceus list, you could always play Cramorant in it. So we are going to play the Lost City. So that is perfect to get rid of this Dragonite here this turn. And the Raikou is not going to have enough damage out to be able to one-shot one of these Arceus. So it'll depend on if we get hit with Cramorant. If we get hit by Cramorant this turn, we just need Boss's Orders on Raikou to win. And if we get hit by the Raikou, we don't need anything, we just win. And you could always weave a Sharon's Care in there if you really wanted to be fun about it, but... Looks like we do play an Escape Rope so that we can use a second Flower Selecting for this turn. We're going to hard attach to this Raikou on the bench. Switch card into the Cramorant. I think that's definitely the attacker you have to use this turn. And heal 30 off of your own Comfey, which is fun. So we do hit for 110, and then we see the Boss's Orders does bring up the Raikou, and Scott is able to take the win. So that was looking really good for Lost Box for most of the game, but unfortunately was not able to cut it, and we do go into a Game 3. So again, if this was best of one like the rest of the tournament was, Anthony would have had a pretty easy, quick win, but now he's down a game, so now he's going to have to win this third game in order to win the match and win the box. The full booster box of Scarlet and Violet. So they are both going to set up here, and it looks like, see, Scott's pointing to the side directly to me. He's like, you jinxed me. I think he said it out loud too, if I'm not mistaken, because he is starting with the Drapion. But if you look at the other side here, we get a Dragonite start as well. So I put the double thumbs up because I was actually really excited about it, because I'm like, oh yeah, you just need to not have any Comfeys or Colruses and start Dragonite, and that's your best start. And then Scott, you just need double Drapion, and then that's your best start. I love being a jerk. Sometimes it's fun. I'm usually a nice guy. I just tease. So we do get the switch cart. We're gonna be able to switch into the Comfey, use flower selecting to get rid of an escape rope, immediately play a battle VIP pass. So you can tell he's excited he was able to get that. And Scott's over here like waving his hands at me. He's like, what did you do to me, man? What did you do to me? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I just call it, like, that's how I would have started if I was in the finals against this. I would have started Drapion. You kidding me? Alright, so the Battle VIP Pass gets out to Comfey. It may have been possible that the Radiant Greninja had been prized, because I would have liked to see that here, especially since there is an energy in hand. But we may also have to see a retreat as well. So we are going to retreat into one Comfey. We're going to use flower selecting. And yeah, we're going to decide whether or not we want to. Looks like we are going to get rid of the Clara to keep the water energy. I think that's because we know that we have the Dragonite in play, so we could always hard attach that for next turn. And that's really all that you needed for turn 1 there, going first for Lost Box. So we do see a Nest Ball. We're going to be able to get our first Arceus V of the game here out. And hopefully never have to attack with Drapion, but I did tell Scott too, I'm like, you can always charge to the Drapion and attack for 190. It does not one-shot a... It does not one-shot a Dragonite, and he's like, shut up, Nick. So we do see Colress's experiment, gonna look at the top 5. And yeah, he sees, because I told him, I'm like, oh yeah, or I think we were both, I didn't say it, but we were both thinking all he needs is a switch card and double turbo, and he gets double switch card and no double turbo. So he's like, wow, if like maybe the rope was, or yeah, if the rope or the switch were just the double turbo instead, I could actually Trinity charge to my Drapion and myself this turn. And that would actually be not that bad of a start. But now he's got a real big decision on what he wants to Lost Zone here. He's got double Duraludon VMAX in his hand. His hand is super dead right now. But he definitely needs to keep at least one of the switching cards. I personally think that it would be fine to Lost Zone one of them. Maybe Lost Zone the rope and then keep the other. I would want to keep the Judge here because I don't think... Does he have another supporter in hand? If he has another supporter in hand, it's fine to Lost Zone the Judge. And he doesn't, so I'm not sure why he Lost Zones the Judge there. But he does have the Arceus V-Star, so I guess that's fine. But I would have gotten rid of one of the 2 switching cards there personally. But that could always come back to bite you, because if Lost Box needs to buy a turn, they could always boss back up the Drapion after you switch out of it in a future turn. And then you have to like hard retreat it with the double turbo, and then that just feels bad. But we do get the energy attached that we needed for the turn onto the Arceus. So even though the start was pretty abysmal, starting with Drapion, getting a really weird Colress's Experiment, this is still not that bad of a position for Arceus to be in. So we do go Flower Selecting, and we see a Lightning Energy and a Mirage Gate. We're going to have to get rid of the Mirage Gate here. We're going to retreat into another Comfey. Flower Selecting again. We do get an Escape Rope. So we are going to grab that. We're going to play it. Go into our third Comfey. Flower Selecting again. I do like that he's marking all of his abilities too. We are going to get rid of an Energy Recycler. So he is down quite a lot of decent resources here right now. He's already down one Energy Recycler. He only has one remaining. And then he also has... a Mirage Gate down. I'm like trying to think of what the other card was and my brain blanked for a second. So we do get the Colress's Experiment though. We're able to Lost Zone yet another Beach Court and something else. Get 3 more cards to our hand. We do get a Forest Seal Stone down to the Dragonite. We don't necessarily have to use that this turn because we just used a Colress's Experiment. And I do believe at this point that the Radiant Greninja is prized. You would have liked to see that previously on that first Battle VIP pass that he got instead of the third Comfey. But... and now we've... so Scott last game remembered to flip his GX, V-Star marker. Oh god, I almost said GX marker. And this game, Anthony is remembering to flip his V-Star marker, so... the world is healing. I'm just glad that nobody double V-Starred. Because if you don't flip your V-Star marker, that would be something easy to, you know, miss. So I'm not sure exactly what we're looking for this turn, unless we're looking for a Cramorant. But Scott did put up the Radiant Gardevoir. I do think that that's the exact card that you would want to put up. You wouldn't want to put up your Arceus and risk it getting hit by a Cramorant. The damage on the Gardevoir does not necessarily matter. It could matter if the Sableye comes into play, but that should be an odd prize. You want to go with only 2 prizers in this game. But if you have to go with the Duraludon VMAX at some point, that could definitely end up being a factor. So we do see the evolution into the V-Star. We do switch, and we might see a Starbirth this turn so that we don't have to charge up the Drapion. Again, charging up the Drapion is not the worst thing in the world here, but it's not the best. Because you could always Choice Belt it, and it could still one-shot a Raikou. But it will not be able to one-shot the Dragonite. So you would rather get another Arceus V down, charge 3 basic energies to that, and then Choice Belt it. But of course, you did also Lost Zone your Choice Belt turn 1. So it's going to be really hard to be able to take out that Dragonite unless on your next turn you can Boss's Orders and dish damage to it before it can do its first attack. So that's really what is going to decide this game, is if the Dragonite can be bossed up. You could do it this turn, because I don't think he's played a supporter yet this turn. So you could Starbirth for the Boss's Orders and an Arceus V, charge up the Arceus V with the 3 basic energies, and then hit the Dragonite before it's able to attack once. And that puts you in a really good position. Because the thing that's most concerning in this matchup about the Dragonite is the 230 HP. If you have to hit into it with an Arceus that has a double turbo, you'd rather get in the first attack before the Dragonite can attack. So whose starter is going to be worse? Is it going to be the Dragonite start or the Drapion start? So we do get down the other Arceus V. We do use the Boss's Orders, so that is the exact play I would have loved to see from Scott here. And he is going to Trinity Nova. Going to put 180 damage on that Dragonite V, and we are going to put at least 1 energy to this Arceus. I would say just put all 3 to the Arceus, it's fine. If you have another double turbo in hand, you could actually put 1 to the Arceus and 2 to the Drapion. And that would actually be pretty good, because then either of those can attack off a double turbo. And the Drapion could always just stack damage to the Radiant Gardevoir. You don't care if the damage goes there or not. But yeah, we just go all 3 basic energies to the Arceus V. Perfectly fine. Now, I'm not sure what's going on with the escape rope here. Because I think did he escape rope twice or just once? I think I missed the first one. Yeah, I think there might be a second escape rope there towards the top. Because they are playing kind of fast, which is nice to see. Even though it's an untimed best-of-3 finals, you still like to see that they're playing at a very reasonable pace. So we are going to Lost Zone 2 more cards, one of which being another Colress's Experiment. Bothers me a little bit that a lot of the Colress's Experiments are mismatched. Pretty sure he has 4 mismatched Colress's Experiments. I think he has one like Reverse Hollow or Regional Promo or something, and then he has the one regular full art, the one alternate art full art, and then the hyper rare, the rainbow rare, whatever they call it. So we are going to attach for turn to the Dragonite here, because that could still potentially be a decent attacker at some point. It would be nice if we're at 10 cards in the Lost Zone now. This would be the perfect time to go off with a Sableye, and then maybe Dragonite the turn after that. It looks like we are already having to use our Energy Recycler. So remember, the first Energy Recycler was already put into the Lost Zone early, and now we're only Energy Recycling for... Energy Recycling? Is that a word? For 3 energies to go back into the deck. So that is a very unimpressive turn, really. So you can see, just this is the way that Lost Box kind of draws sometimes, is it has to Lost Zone very important cards too early, or it just has to, you know, do stuff like this. It feels really bad to Energy Recycler 3 cards into your deck just to play Mirage Gate onto your already damaged Dragonite that you know is going to get knocked out in one hit, just to do 230 damage to a Arceus V-Star. Yeah, and I just made sure that the Forest Seal Stone didn't stay on the bench. He promoted the Dragonite, but didn't promote the Forest Seal Stone. I'm like, that's not a Pokemon on your bench, sir. And then he Lost Zones it anyway. With the Lost Vacuum. Because you don't need it. So that's just in case your opponent judges you. So that is 220 damage. Or 230 damage, right? See, 2, 8... Yeah, 230 damage, so that is correct. Make sure we're taking that Gardevoir into account, because it is an easy mistake to make missing that. So now if you're Scott here, if you have Chorus's Sharon's Care, then you play that here and you basically win the game. Because you heal all of that damage that was just done, you take 2 prize cards, you go to a 2 prize card lead, and you get rid of their Dragonite, and you know that there's basically no threat of a second Dragonite getting set up. Especially if you have the Lost City here. So if you were able to save the Starbirth for this turn, if you were able to get this to this point without the Starbirth, you could have gotten Lost City and Sharon's Care, and then that would have been checkmate. But the only reason you're in this position is because of the Starbirth earlier with the boss on the Dragonite. So we do get the finish off damage onto the Dragonite V, and we are able to, you know, use Trinity Nova. We decide not to put any energy into play. I would have put energy on the Drapion. I don't know why you're so afraid of attacking with the Drapion. I think it's fine. You might as well. If you had Psychic Energy in the deck, I would even consider charging up the Radiant Gardevoir as well. In the versions of Arceus that are playing Espeon VMAX, you 100% can set up Radiant Gardevoir. You have to attach to it at least twice, though. You have to attach the basic Psychic from hand, and you have to attach the double Turbo from hand. But, I mean, it could still stack up some considerable damage sometimes. So we are using Clara. We're going to get back Dragonite and 2 energies. So the only way to reliably get those onto the Dragonite is to get judged ourselves, or if we maybe play Roxanne. So we are going to Lost Zone the Nest Ball with our first flower selecting of the turn here. We do have still quite a bit of cards in our hand, but they are all just energy cards. So Sableye will be able to come in and take the knockout on the Arceus and then stack the rest of the damage on the other Arceus. And then that kind of sort of punishes Scott for not having the Sharon's Care on the last turn. Now we see the additional energy does go to the Radiant Greninja, and I don't think that you're reliably going to have a way to get the rest of the energy onto that Radiant Greninja, but it's possible. Yeah, especially since he just used a water energy to retreat. I don't know how you're going to get that back unless you Clara another time. So we are going to finish off the Arceus V-Star, and then probably just put the remaining 6 or whatever it is on Arceus V. 230. There should be one more damage counter, I believe. Yeah, you should have been able to do one more damage counter, because he was at 230 damage on him. So that's a misplay. We missed one damage counter, I believe. So we do Nest Ball for the Vulpix V. I think it's a little late for that, but if you are able to set it up and you get through this Sableye, all of the other attackers in the deck besides the Sableye are Pokemon with abilities, because the Dragonite's already down. But the Dragonite is in hand again. So if there is a world where a Mirage Gate can somehow set it up, but I don't think there's the energy in deck for the Dragonite to come up. So if the Vulpix gets set up. And again, I think there's like 4 cards in the Lost Zone here again. So I told him, I'm like, you could attack with Cramorant, man. If you're playing Cramorant, you could have gone for it right now. You could have gone Escape Rope, hit with Cramorant, knock out any of the Pokemon that are in play from your opponent. We do Ultra Ball away the 2 Duraludon V that we've had in our hands since the beginning of the game. To grab the Arceus V-Star, we are going to evolve into that. We will be able to Trinity Nova, but how many basic energies do we have left? We need one of them to be a water energy. So I guess if we still have Raihan available to us, we could always use the Raihan to put the water energy back onto the Vulpix. But nope, it looks like the water energy is still in deck. We do have enough energies. So because we have not set up the Drapion yet, we are able to set up the Vulpix V. So we do see the Dragonite gets benched yet again, with an attachment for turn of the Lightning Energy. And then we Mirage Gate, and there's a Psychic Energy left in deck, it looks like. That goes to the Radiant Greninja. And at this point, what do? There is no way that you can build up another additional single attack unless you're attacking with Sableye at this point, because you do have another Psychic Energy in hand. But you did just attach for turn to the Dragonite. So it looks like at this point he's just going to try to stall. And if that Drapion just stays active and can't move, there is a world where Anthony is able to just put down a Sableye and just continuously put damage counters on the bench. But it looks like Scott has been able to save that Escape Rope all game. I would have lost on turn 1, as I said, but it is coming out clutch for him right here, because that allows him to move his Drapion. Although I think he could have probably researched, or Colress has experimented or something into a double turbo at this point to retreat. But, you know, either way. Still ends up working out for him. Doesn't have to dig for anything. Attaches an energy to the Gardevoir for turn, because if the Beach Court comes back out again, we will be able to see the Gardevoir retreat for 1 energy. But at this point, Anthony just concedes. He knows he's way too far behind. He's like, oh man, you got it. And again, if it was best of 1, Anthony would have won because he did win game 1, but best of 3, Scott was able to close it out and come back. Especially after the Drapion start. The Drapion start was not the end of him. The Dragonite start was the end of Anthony. So I hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and all of that good stuff to feed the YouTube algorithm. And we will see you guys next time with more matches from another League Challenge.